Hi, everyone. My name is Zena Sharman, and I am a white settler of mostly Scottish and Irish heritage. I grew up on the traditional territory of the Fort William First Nation, which is in a place called Thunder Bay in Ontario. I was raised by a single mom who was really amazing, and going to school was something I loved and something I was really good at. And I also knew that getting scholarships was the only way I was going to be able to go to university. Our family couldn't have afforded it otherwise. So that was one of the ways I started learning about applying for and getting scholarships. Did a master's and a PhD and kept doing that learning about getting scholarships. And the reason I'm sharing that part of my story is I remember feeling sometimes really confused and overwhelmed by trying to figure out, how do you apply for funding? How do you make sense of like what opportunity is the right opportunity for you? How do you use the right language for these kinds of agencies and institutions? So what we're hoping to do with this video is create an opportunity for some learning and some sharing and showing some of the people behind the funding agencies and programs to kind of humanize it a little bit, and also share some of the knowledge that we have. So I'm joining you today from the traditional ancestral and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples, which is also where the Michael Smith Foundation for Health Research is based. And I am someone who has been trained as a health researcher, but always really from a place of deep investment in supporting the health of my communities and the larger world where I want to hopefully help us move towards more equity and justice. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the Michael Smith Foundation and kind of what we do and who we are. So basically, we are BC's health research funding agency, and we've been around for about 20 years. And during that time, our main focus has been on talent development. So really what we're doing is really understanding who's out there in the health research community, where is the funding most needed for us to be able to support people to do the really great work that we do. And we have a number of different programs right now. One of them, the research trainee program, is for postdoctoral fellows. And then we also have one called the scholar program, which is for university faculty members earlier in their careers. So we're really grateful at the Michael Smith Foundation to have the opportunity to be in relationship with the BC NEIHR. And I say that speaking for me, just personally, but also really speaking, on behalf of all of us at MSFHR that are in the process of really building and growing this relationship together. And one aspect of that relationship is a new partnership on BC NEIHR's funding programs. So to help bridge capacity for Indigenous health research in BC, we're providing funding to support BC NEIHR's master's and doctoral scholarships and postdoctoral fellowships. We really know that there is considerable underrepresentation of Indigenous folks among health researchers, and see a really amazing opportunity to be able to provide funding, particularly for people like you, master students, doctoral students, postdoctoral fellows, people that are at the earlier stages of their work and learning, and who we know will have really amazing and important impacts through the work that you're doing, not just as scholars, but also in and with your communities. So we're really honored and grateful to be able to have this partnership and to be able to provide that funding support, again, just as one part of our relationship with BC NEIHR over time. And I know that probably many of you are maybe newer in your programs, or just coming into the world of applying for funding, and so really want to encourage you and cheer you on.
So my name is Chanetta Jones, and I'm the Vice President of Research at the Michael Smith Foundation for Health Research here in British Columbia. I've actually been with the foundation for a little under 6 months, but I've been in research for more than 2 decades now. I started off training as a scientist in the US, and I was very much interested in fundamental biology and asking just very basic questions, but always had this keen interest about understanding how the body works and where that goes wrong, how that actually imparts on the health and the well-being of an individual. So I've always had that interest for a long time. And I'm somewhat unusual in my background. I'm the first scientist in my family. I'm the first one in my family to get a PhD. I come from a rather big family. My father is American and he's from the kind of rural part of the US. He came from a big family of like 15 kids. And my mother is Korean and she came from also a semi-big family of 5, working class family, but I've always had this really strong interest in research and in science, and just really was grateful that my parents helped to nourish that and support that. And I had really good teachers that supported that. So since I was 7 years old, always wanted to be in research. I knew that. And I'm just really pleased that I've been able to develop a career. And so over the last maybe say 10 years or so, I've actually left doing research actively, working for funding agencies like the Michael Smith Foundation. I've worked for other funding agencies in the US and in the UK, in London. And at Michael Smith, we're very much interested in developing and growing and supporting research talent. And that's why I'm here. For me, giving back to early career researchers is a joy. It's something that I really value coming up in research, and is very much something I'm quite passionate about. And so working for a funding agency like Michael Smith allows me to be able to support the community in this way. And it's absolutely why I go to work every day. So I really enjoy it.
My name is Andrew Biehken, and I'm the Research Competitions Coordinator here at the Michael Smith Foundation for Health Research. I've been in this role actually 7 years now. So, I've had the opportunity to, be on certain funding opportunities like the Scholar program, which is kind of for early career investigators, as well as other competitions. So I've really had the opportunity to be on the other side of the funding, kind of like on the research on the funding spectrum. So I was able to kind of being able to see the application process and the types of applications we received in the past. So just being able to see the application process just kind of hopefully will give me help me give some advice give advice to folks out there that might be applying for the first time.
So my name is Shannon Tolleson. I'm a research competitions coordinator at the Michael Smith Foundation for Health Research. And as a coordinator, I take the lead in the day-to-day coordination of some of our funding programs. So this year, I am the lead coordinator for the Health Professional Investigator Program and the REACH program. I've also coordinated our MSFHR COVID-19 Research Response Fund, which ran this spring and summer. So those are what I've been working on this year. A little bit of my background: I live in Vancouver. I have lived here for about 3 years, and I've moved here from the US. So I'm very, very excited to be in Canada, and I love it here. You would probably want to first start out by asking yourself what kind of funding you're looking for. Are you looking for like a personnel salary stipend type award for like a postdoctoral fellowship or a student fellowship? Or are you looking for operating funds for a particular project? That will determine what direction your search will go.
So the first advice I would give is really find the right funding opportunity for you and your research. And it's a really good idea to just get advice from your supervisor and your mentors in terms of what might be the places to go. I would probably also encourage people to think about smaller funding agencies like some of the research foundations or the charities.
You can also visit the website of a health research funding agency where you can find more information on their current or upcoming competitions or funding opportunities. Read the information on the website. Usually these things are pretty detailed, so take the time to take in the details, especially things like eligibility criteria to make sure that you're eligible to apply for a given program. Things like key deadlines, how application process works and how applications will be assessed?
You can reach out to your university's grant facilitation office or your department. They may know of opportunities as well. And finally, if you're part of any professional organization, you can see if they have a list of resources or opportunities that they communicate as well. At our institution at MSFHR, our panels obviously are different based on the different funding agency, but the typical panel would involve recruiting a multidisciplinary panel of scientific experts with expertise in a particular research area, such as biomedical sciences. So as you can see, that's a very broad umbrella. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. Your application will be reviewed and voted on by people who may not all have as deep of understanding of your particular research area as you do. So that's one of the reasons it's important to make your application as easy to understand for a general scientific audience as possible. So most panels will have a chair, a scientific officer, and several panel members. The chair runs the meeting, the scientific officer will take notes on the meeting, and then the panel members will complete detailed reviews of the applications. Each application is typically assigned 2 lead reviewers, a primary reviewer and a secondary reviewer, who will complete these assessments. After those assessments are done, there is usually an in-person peer review meeting, panel meeting, but obviously this year they have all been virtual. The entire panel convenes and discusses each application. The chair will guide the meeting, the scientific officer will take notes on the meeting, and each of the lead reviewers will present your application and their assessment of that. After that, the panel will discuss the application and they will all vote on that application. So after the peer review meeting, MSFHR will use those results to determine the outcome of the funding competition. We provide applicants with the outcome as well as with their results, as well as the reviewer feedback and scientific officer notes on their applications. So you will get some constructive feedback as a result of this.
Start early, like earlier than you might think. The application process is just as much about developing your ideas as they are about putting it on paper. And so my rule of thumb, and this might sound like a long lead time, but it's really not, is 6 months easily before a funding deadline.
But I think the most important thing for me and for my observations from this side is to really plan in advance and start your application early. Writing and submitting the grant are the final steps in a multi-step process. Reviewers can tell whether or not an application was written 5 days before the submission deadline, or whether an applicant really took the time to kind of go over the application.
Make sure you understand the guidelines and the evaluation criteria for that competition. So, for example, you'll want to make sure that you're eligible to apply for this particular competition, and find out what's required of you. What are the steps? What are the key dates? And also, how will you be evaluated? Make sure that you want to make sure that what you're writing in your application form matches what the reviewers will be assessing your application against, so that there aren't gaps that they would notice. Certainly make sure you know the application process and timeline and key dates. Every year we have applicants who end up missing the deadline because they didn't realize or they weren't able to get their supervisors to submit their form or their reference letters in, or even invited to on time. And you just want to make sure you meet all of those deadlines, and there can be multiple deadlines. There could be a letter of intent deadline prior to the full application that you have to meet in order to proceed in the competition. There probably are internal deadlines at your institution and requirements that you have to go through ahead of the actual competition deadline. So there's a lot of moving pieces you'll want to keep track of, and it's very important to have a good grasp of what's required well ahead of time.
Ask for help in writing your application. I think oftentimes, you've got these great ideas and you feel like, well, I've got to prove myself and I've got to do everything by myself, but that's so not what the process is about. It's about working with your supervisor and your peers and colleagues and testing your ideas with them and asking them to read your application, your proposal, and give them time to give you some helpful feedback.
You could, if you need help with your application, you could reach out to your supervisor or a mentor or someone who can help guide you or answer questions. These people will have experience writing successful grants in the past as well as unsuccessful grants. And they may also have served on these peer review panels themselves and could reach out to our peers, other students or postdocs who have applied for these competitions in the past and been successful. And finally, you can always reach out to the funding agency directly. We answer emails and phone calls from applicants all the time. You can reach out to us about any question you might have about the application process.
Invite feedback, everything, from at the grant writing stage from your supervisor to when you get the peer reviewer comments back. Like, really take on board that feedback because it's there really intended to help you. And I think really importantly after that, or related to that, is don't take the feedback personally. This is part of the process of developing your ideas, and that feedback can often help you write a stronger application. And what we see as a funder is many times that people may just fall short the first time they apply, but we get a lot of people that come back and write again and submit another application, and so much stronger than their first submission because they took on board all of that feedback. So that's what I would say is keep trying. You'll learn, you'll get better, it gets easier, but again, it's a very rewarding process.
I just wanted to talk really more about reviewer comments. So usually at the end of the peer review process, whether or not an applicant is funded or not, reviewers, they technically get a set of reviewer notes and comments to kind of talk about their application. And what I've found is that those that really take the reviewer comments, if they review them and really take them into account and apply them for future applications, I've just found out that I find that those that take the notes into the comments and really address them, and when they apply for future competitions, that their application rate kind of goes up. I guess another advice that I can give is for applications that have third-party activities like reference letters, make sure to build in time to request them from other people and give them an early heads up and ideally lots of time to write their letter. So when you're requesting like a reference letter, give the people writing letters for you everything that they need to write a great letter. So this usually includes information on what funding opportunity the letter is for, and anything specific you want them to highlight in it. So when it's due, and then any requirements around the letter that it's supposed to cover or how it should be formatted, and kind of what they need to know about you and your research project to write a good letter. So things like you might need to include a copy of your CV and research proposal, for example, or anything else that you might think that can help them understand who you are, what your research is about, and what some of your accomplishments are. And it also helps to kind of organize this information in a quicker, easy to use format. So, supervisors are often writing multiple letters for current and former students and trainees. So anything that you can do to help them make their lives easier helps the both of them. And at the end, really is to, another thing I can do is to really show your gratitude. A really good reference letter takes a lot of time and effort to do, and really reviewers really appreciate it when reference letters don't sound generic or sound kind of cookie cutterish. Reference letters that really speak personally about the applicant are really valuable, and it really helps them for their review. So
Pay attention to grantsmanship. You know, it's really important that people can read your application, actually understand what your ideas are and how you actually plan to take the work forward. No matter what career or stage or how long you've been doing this, a lot of time applications fall down for that reason. The reviewer just can't understand what's on paper. And so that's the advantage of having someone read it.
Grantsmanship really, really matters. The reviewers will comment on applications that they find to be poorly written. They will mention that in their feedback. It serves you best if you make it as easy for them to read and follow as possible, with a logical flow of information. Spelling and grammar matter.
So kind of having a cohesive flow of application really allows reviewers to read the application without having to kind of go back and forth between pages. And then formatting the application to be so that it's easy to read. Use headings that show a logical progression and break up the text into paragraphs. One common thing that I've noted in applications is that many applicants tend to kind of they're kind of tempted to exhaust the character limits or word counts for the sake of trying to see if they can kind of make their application sound really complete. But honestly, if you can figure out a way, if you can figure out a way to kind of keep everything succinct, but really maintain, make sure that your application is detailed, I would say don't be afraid of white spaces.
I remember my very first experience, and I remember being really intimidated by it, and I found it really difficult. And I thought, gosh, am I ever going to learn to do this well? And the truth of it is that grant writing takes practice, and you'll be practicing for your entirety of your career. There are people who've been doing this for decades who still find that it's not always easy to write a grant application. So, accept that, it'll take a lot of practice. It's okay if it seems hard, it gets better. But keep trying. If you're unsuccessful, then try and try again.